Undaunted, unafraid, complete, Turner, touchdown!
This is 365 Sports.
Pass protection, there's the shot, coverage, possibly a stumble, it's a house call. Touchdown, Kansas State.
365 Sports is presented by IdealMRI.com. High-quality MRIs for $497 or less. IdealMRI.com. Your health is important, so is your budget.
Happy feet, downfield, caught, broken tackle, Lassiter, touchdown! Are you kidding me?
365 Sports is also brought to you by Texas Farm Bureau Insurance, protecting Texans since 1952.
Here's Jennings, he'll launch it downfield, looking for Smith, it's caught, touchdown SMU and Keyshawn Smith.
365 Sports is turbocharged by Unite Private Networks. Find out more at uniteprivatenetworks.com. Now here's David Smoak and Craig Smoak.
All right, here we go. And a little earlier, a lot earlier than we are normally on the air, David Smoak with Craig Smoak in our studios at 365 Sports, just down from McLean Stadium in Waco. And we are in the studio with everybody except Paul. He's out right now. We'll be back on Wednesday. And Craig and I are going to look a little bit at kind of the different stories you could get when it comes to the team rankings and the transfer portal. We'll get to that in just a moment. Garrett Ross, Andrew Valade, Emery Winter are in studio. We have guests today, including Josh McCuistion from Soonerscoop.com on Oklahoma's offseason. We've discussed him a little bit and what they've done and who they've added and who are the ones with the most impact, they hope, for the upcoming season. And Max Olson, ESPN.com, will join us today as well on the transfer portal, which is something he covers like a blanket. Craig Smoak with me, David Smoak, and here we go. One, the transfer portal, we've heard about what Texas Tech has done. They are unquestionably the highest-ranked team when it comes to what they've done with the transfer portal by adding as many players as they've had, and, of course, they've lost some too. But they are well ahead of everybody, Craig, with what they've done to add, who they've lost, and they are number one on the transfer portal list.
Yeah, first of all, I guess happy birthday. Today's your birthday. So
that's very exciting the way you said that. That's thank you very much.
I mean, would you want fireworks next time?
No, but by the way,
countdown?
Thanks to Paul and Amanda, they sent some breakfast burritos to the studio and also some donuts. So thank you very much. Appreciate it.
So happy birthday, and what's up to everybody in chat? And I mean, are these fresh rankings? Because it feels like, I mean, it's been pretty well documented that Texas Tech has had quite the offseason. I think we've looked at this about every way that you can, and Tech is certainly somebody who maybe wasn't anticipated to be sitting at the top of those rankings in most people's minds, but there they've been pretty much this entire offseason right there near the top. So, yeah, I mean, asked the question the other day about whether this is going to be commonplace or if this is just kind of a one-off because they feel like the makings are there for this year to be when you want to make a huge run. But given their backing, this may very well be the Big 12's version of Ole Miss, who I compared them to in terms of, is this a one-year type of strategy or is this every year they're going to go heavy in the portal? And I don't know, if I had to guess right now, it probably is going to be a little bit like Ole Miss, because why would Cody Campbell not do this every year if he's capable of doing it? So, yeah, I mean, it's great. They're on top of the transfer rankings. They've gotten a lot of pub out of it. They've got a lot of big expectations as a result of it. And so, yeah, they're soaking it all up. And I think they're getting as much in advertising based off of what they've done as probably what they spent in the portal at this stage. So now we know what that means. It's great for now, and it'll be great for the next couple of months. But ultimately, does it result in championships? That will be the key to whether, all this was really all that meaningful or not. And then a lot of SEC, a lot of Big Ten following that. And, I don't know how you want to break this down. I memean, there's a lot of teams on here. So
well, that's what we're going to do.
Yeah.
Texas Tech, they lost a lot of players who moved on, and some of them probably were told that, you need to look elsewhere. But one of the things that makes their class so good, others have more transfers that have come in. For example, Ole Miss has 30. Texas Tech with 21, is that they have, of their 21, according to On3 and, of course, ESPN and others have their rankings too, they have 13 of their 21 players rated as 4 stars. So that's part of what has given them the uptick. Ole Miss, 30, but they also had 28 moving out. I just saw Paxton on the chat room, and by the way, thank you for being a part of us this morning. Paxton, he goes, I didn't realize LSU, Garrett, has done as well as they've done, in the portal. They are at number 3, and they've added 10 of those. Actually, 10 4 stars, lost a couple of them. Mm-hmm. So give us an idea. Is this higher than you thought?
No, it's about where I expected when you look at this. I think they're trying to bolster what they can do on the trenches because they've really struggled mightily there. They're also trying to fill up their secondary, which has struggled as well. I don't necessarily like this. I like the approach of how Texas is doing this, where you recruit and you retain your guys and you build cohesiveness. I don't like how LSU is having to dip into the portal as much as they are. I think they got to do a better job recruiting, getting guys in there, really getting the Louisiana kids back in there because Texas is starting to take some of them. And I knew that was going to happen when Texas went into the SEC. But they're also at a financial disadvantage compared to some of these other programs. But I think it really goes back to they need to anchor down on their recruiting and retain these guys because I don't want to see them up in here having to go to the portal every year to refill the cupboard. I do not like that.
No, because that means that you're having to replace either people who are unhappy or weren't good enough to play for you. By the way, out of everybody in the top 10, and again, everybody here has a story to tell. We only did 1 through 5 and then listed the schools from around our area or part of the Big 12. Just because, for example, you might be 46 BYU doesn't mean you have not filled some gaps and holes. But Ohio State, ranked number 10, have just 7 incoming players. They lost 16, but a lot of them are highly ranked. Texas, for example, at 16, they've brought in 10. And again, this is fluid because you could add or lose, but they brought in 10 players, all of them very, very good. So 16 based on per capita of what you've brought in, you could actually be higher quality. It's almost like Louisiana is the number 1 state per capita in feeding the NFL draft and sometimes in recruiting because it doesn't have a lot of population, but the quality is very good with what they have. So there's Baylor at 15. I think they've had a very successful year. Now, can it carry over? We'll figure that out. They've also lost a few. There you see the others. Look, 15 through 19 are all kind of locally a part of what we do with Baylor, Texas, and A&M, SMU, K-State, and then you see a lot of the other Big 12 teams on the second column. OU at 48, we will hear from that. I thought they would be higher, but they've lost a few. We'll ask Josh McCuistion about the coming and the going of what Oklahoma has done in the transfer portal. Some teams do it better than others. Some teams have more to spend than others. Some teams are more committed to that than others. And then again, as you said, Garrett, you'd like to hope that your high school rankings are strong enough to where you don't have to be a part of this too often from year in and year out. And I wonder if the House settlement will change this at all. I don't think so. I don't think it's going to change the transfer portal. That's not going away. Maybe it changes a little bit of what teams do once the House settlement and that revenue sharing is in place. So there we are with that. Arizona State, for example. Here's a great example. We had Chris Karpman on, late last week from Arizona State. They wrapped up spring drills. They lost players, and they replaced a lot of the players, but it's not like they still haven't had a successful offseason with who they kept. And then also those who moved on pretty much probably did not have a chance or weren't going to be a part of their too deep in play in 2025. So there we are with that. One basketball note. We're going to have Josh McCuistion on here in just a moment. One basketball note. Federico, who is at Texas Tech, big, tall drink of water, 6'11", has signed and will head to Texas A&M. With their new coach, they've had a pretty nice little run after they had the coaching change. But there they are, Federico, who at times very active, obviously very tough inside, not so much physical, but because of his length and his wingspan. So he's stays in state, but is headed to the SEC and Texas A&M. Now, I want to talk one professional sport quickly before we get to Josh McCuistion. I'm sitting there. We were talking about hockey. Last night, Garrett, Craig, Stars on the road in Colorado against the Avalanche had a chance to close out the series. I don't watch a lot of it, but the Stars had a really nice second period. Took the lead 4-3. And then Colorado, the avalanche of goals, 4-0. They outscored Dallas in the third period to force a Game 7 back in Dallas. What happened, Garrett?
I think it was one of those things where you look at the situation and Dallas got over their skis a little bit. I think that the injuries and not having the availability of two of your key scorers is starting to catch up with them. You did have a excellent second period there where you came about with 3 different goals. Rope Hintz was really carrying that with 2 goals himself. You're also having to rely on Mikko Rantanen to become a scorer for you, which anytime you're relying on a defenseman to do that, that's not a good sign. And it was really a lucky shot that they were able to get off. Nate McKinnon threw one towards the goal there. It bounced off the shoulder of a player and stuck by Ottinger for them to get the win. But that's what's to be expected in these type of series. It's a rivalry. You're going to see game 7s. And I think Dallas has what it takes to win, but it's definitely going to be difficult for them to get past the Avalanche.
It was a hell of a game. I can't believe that it was just a blitzkrieg of goals, by the way. Paxton, earlier I mentioned, he said, I didn't know LSU had done that well. OU at 48, and that's why Josh is going to join us. They've brought in some dudes now with Mateer and Ott and others. We talked about the wide receiver room position where they've added a lot because they had basically nothing from that position last year with injuries and more. That 48, they have recruited well, but Josh will help us a little bit more with some of the players they've gotten from the FCS level or the non-Power 4 level, recruited into Norman to try to help Brent Venables get himself in pretty good shape. All right, we're going to take a break and come back with Josh McCuistion, Soonerscoop.com. Max Olson will join us as well. We will have Paul Catalina with a couple of interviews, more NFL-related, on the Philadelphia Eagles, the defending Super Bowl champions, and what they did during the offseason and also with the draft. And then also we'll check in on the Bears, which was an intriguing team with Josh who do we have?
Josh Davis.
Josh Davis on what they did as well. We will come back with his top 5 at the late polls and everything else. This is 365 Sports.
At Allen Samuels in Waco, get the 2024 Ram 3500 diesel 4x4 for just $56,800, or drive home a 2025 Ram 1500 for only $35,900. Big trucks, big savings, only at Allen Samuels in Waco.
I'll never get used to this. I'll never get used to this. This is how I wanna live. Forever, everything I like. I'll never get used to this.
Whatever it is you wrangle, whatever seeds you sow, no matter what you nurture or what you choose to grow, at Texas Farm Bureau Insurance, we're proud to protect all Texans.
Developed by Startup Waco, a nonprofit organization, GXG is a program designed to support the entrepreneurial development of Baylor University student athletes through NIL activations. The program helps student athletes maximize their platforms and offers a comprehensive support system for them to create and grow new businesses that not only benefit themselves, but also uplift the local economy. Fans who wish to support student athletes can donate to GXG via the GXG NIL Fund, BaylorBears.com/GXG. Contributions to support NIL activations through GXG can be made at BaylorBears.com/GXG. For more information, follow at GXG_GreenXGold on social media and visit the official website www.gxg.startupwaco.com. GXG, empowering student-athlete entrepreneurship and uplifting the local economy through NIL activations.
The Jeep Celebration event is on at Allen Samuels. Get the luxurious 2024 Jeep Grand Wagoneer with a huge $13,000 dealer discount plus 0% financing. Big savings, legendary Jeeps at Allen Samuels in Waco.
Come by, let's be friends.
This is 365 Sports.
The 3 o'clock hour is sponsored by Waco Custom Marketplace. Meats, sweets, Texas treats, and a cut above the rest. 425 Lake Air Drive, Waco.
We just went over, and everybody, just like high school recruiting, there's all sorts of rankings. Oklahoma's transfer portal with Mateer and Ott and others. They have gotten some of the better names that were available. Josh McCuistion of Soonerscoop.com joins me. David Smoak along with Craig Smoak on 365 Sports. Josh, obviously, I don't want to talk about a clock is ticking or hot seat or whatever, but my God, if Oklahoma doesn't turn the corner, right, this could be where they kind of not fall into oblivion, but they just become another program. How critical is this specific offseason?
I think it's huge for Oklahoma. I don't think there's any doubt, David. You look at it and you can look back to the 2 years ago when OU goes 10-3 and they have a pretty solid year. And we're actually quite close to making it to the Big 12 title game and kind of having a rematch with Texas after that classic at the Cotton Bowl. But, you look at how they lost, they lost to Kansas. There were some rain delays. They didn't play very well. Then the next week they go and play Oklahoma State. And again, just, it was a good Oklahoma State team, but they didn't play very well. And there's this feeling like, well, okay, Oklahoma didn't understand the measure of the SEC. And I don't really think that's fair. I think Oklahoma lost a ton of offensive linemen coming out of that final year of the Big 12. But when you say that, you're like, well, they must have closed really strong in the Big 12. They didn't. I mean, the first 2 years under Brent Venables, there were 10 losses. I mean, so you're just kind of like, at some point, I think Brent Venables is a great recruiter. I think the fan base wants to believe in him. I think whether they do believe in him is a question mark, but they want to buy in. They like him as a human being. They like what he stands for. But at some point, it's Oklahoma. You got to show something or something's got to give.
Josh, they got to win, as you mentioned, but, man, they've been feeding you guys a nice fat batch of stories this offseason, huh? I mean, Nagy and Mateer and Ott and, just on and on and on. What's it been like just seeing how, much they've just been attacking everything, it seems like? What have they not attacked, if anything?
Well, guys, the crazy thing is you look at it from the moment he arrived, and Brent Venables is, very much we want to develop. We want to be a program that's about, year over year. We don't want a lot of portal chaos like that. I think like most teams, they'd like to have 6-7 guys kind of, cutting the back end of the roster, and hopefully they're adding more to it. But you look at it, there's only 1 year there hasn't been some quarterback chaos for Oklahoma. That first year when Brent comes in, Caleb Williams goes to USC, Oklahoma brings in Dylan Gabriel right as the buzzer expires, basically. I mean, he was literally 24 hours away from being unavailable to Oklahoma. And then, you kind of have the second year heading into Gabriel. We're like, okay, that's set. And then the next year, Dylan Gabriel's kind of said, hey, they think he's going to go pro. Jackson Arnold's the guy they expect to be their guy. The chaos of last year. And now you head into this year with a new offensive coordinator, a new defensive coordinator who is Brent Venables, a new quarterback. You just look at it and it's like, man, this has not been what Brent Venables wanted. It hasn't been. He wanted his staff to be locked in and be very much like the Clemson model where guys just stay and stay and stay. And that hasn't been what's happened due to, some guys having success and moving on. Jeff Levy taking the Mississippi State head job. You look at Zach Alley taking the West Virginia job, working with Rich Rodriguez, who he had some time with. And then, you have the abomination that was Oklahoma's offense and things having to change. So, again, it hasn't been boring covering Oklahoma for the last 4 years.
What's the fan temperature besides frustrated? You see now with what their number one rival, Texas, is like on an absolute heater. What is the temperature in Norman?
Well, it's so funny, David, and I get OU fans that remind me of this all the time. While Texas was down, struggling, whatever you want to say, for so long I was like, guys, a good Texas makes Oklahoma better. They need to have somebody pushing them. And I think that was true in the Big 12, where it was really Oklahoma and Texas. And then again, like, you had the great years for Baylor, TCU had several great years, but you, like, from a national perspective, for Oklahoma to make a 4-team playoff, it helped them if Texas was a top 10 win rather than, well, they went 7-5 and maybe made the Alamo Bowl. Like, that didn't give Oklahoma the bounce they were looking for. And I think it let Oklahoma fall asleep a little bit. I think that's why you had those lopsided teams under Lincoln Riley that were great offensively, but just couldn't play a lick of defense. So I think like I said a second ago, the fans want to believe in Brent Venables, and I think they love the Jim Nagy thing. I think that's really been well received, and you look at some of the additions they've made. The Jaden Ott kid from Cal, I think everybody is rightly really excited about. I think people look at his numbers from last year and kind of forget he was a 1,400-yard sophomore in the Pac-12 and was a guy that most people thought was going to be in this year's draft. So I think Oklahoma kind of fell under a lucky star to get him. But I mean, it is like, I think there is if this team, and against this schedule, this saying Oklahoma needs to go 8-4 sounds like, well, that's the expectation. You look at this schedule, they've got 7 top 25 teams on this schedule. It's a murderer's row. And if they can go 8-4 and show some growth, and, and there's a sign that maybe John Mateer returns for 26, that 26 Oklahoma team with a new schedule, maybe softening a little bit, could look like a very different team than what we're talking about right now. But they've got to find a way to get through 25.
Josh, what was it like to see them march through an SEC schedule? I mean, obviously fresh teams, fresh locations, bigger venues, things like that. We know they ruled the roost for the longest time there in the Big 12. So what was that like to just see a change of scenery, and how much did that inject a different type of energy?
It really was. The fan base, you could tell, enjoyed the new atmospheres, even in Norman, the new presence of like, oh, okay, Alabama rolled out in huge numbers, or, whoever it was, Tennessee, when they descended for that first SEC game. Like, there really was a different feel amongst the fan base. And I thought it made the home environment better, even though Oklahoma didn't give the fans a lot to cheer about for much of last year. That South Carolina game was a slog. It was over late first quarter. That game was already dead because Oklahoma couldn't score any points. So, I do. It was fun. And, the first year you get to go down to Ole Miss and see the Grove and some of that stuff. And I can speak for some of our staff. They enjoyed the Grove quite a little bit. So, it was a cool environment. I mean, from a guy who covers it and has to deal with fans day in and day out, you wish they didn't have to be so sad about every moment that was last year. But it was, if you can take that part out of it, it was an amazing experience. And it was much of what you come to expect from the SEC.
All right, so let's put OU back in that area, not the time period where they won the national title or when they threatened, but let's just go back to where they still, from 2010 until they left, there were a lot of years they won it. K-State had their moment, Oklahoma State, Baylor, TCU. But how would you, if you put them in that level and you put them in the SEC today, where would they compete? And is the SEC, now that you've seen it for a year, as daunting and as big as you hear, or not?
It's an interesting thing, because if you're talking to me about Oklahoma could have, the years of Baker or Kyler or so, those teams that, I was talking about earlier, we're lopsided. We're great offensively. They're going to be in every game, just because you can go back to that 2017 team who was one of the worst defenses you'll ever see. But people forget that team went to Ohio State and won that year. And played decent defensively doing it. And that wasn't a great Ohio State team, but I don't care. You go into Columbus and win, you've done something. Now, and then, goes to the Rose Bowl and fights Georgia tooth and nail and puts up 40 on Georgia, who, we all know what they're putting out defensively. So, again, that team would compete, but they'd fall short, just like those teams did when they ran into SEC teams. When you run into Nick Saban, when you run into other teams who may not be as proficient as you are on offense, but they're going to make you sweat a little bit when you've got the ball. Because that was, I mean, guys, we know, I mean, for several years there under Riley, Oklahoma would just name your number. Like, what do you want to hit? And they'll go score because they had, CeeDee Lamb, Kyler Murray, Hollywood Brown, like all these explosive playmakers, and they had a good trigger man. Like, there's not a lot that, Big 12 defenses were going to deal with. But you look at the SEC, and to me, the thing that I will say, and I think last year I didn't think the SEC was what we're accustomed to seeing, and I think you're seeing that around college football. I don't think the great teams are as great as they were a few years ago, and people can hate the portal and hate NIL. I think that's helped. I think it's leveled the field in a lot of ways where 3 or 4, I guess maybe 5 years ago, there were about 4 or 5 teams that legitimately had a chance to win a national title. Now there's 10, like 12 maybe at this point in the year that could really make that run if things fall right. And I think it's just because guys now, like you don't have to go to these schools to, make money. Let's be honest. That was happening long before NIL existed. You don't have to go to those places, and you can go, like, guys don't want to sit around and wait to be the third string guy at Georgia when they can go be the starter at, Kentucky or Oklahoma. I mean, whatever it may be, you can move around and make those choices for yourself. I will say last year in the SEC, the wake-up call for Oklahoma fans, the defensive line play, it's unparalleled. Like, I mean, Oklahoma picked about the worst possible moment in history to be as bad as they've been on offensive line in 20 years. Like, I mean, they were terrible last year, and they faced, I think, something like 6 first-round picks along the defensive line, not to mention all the second, third, fourth rounders that were mixed in around the rest of the SEC. So, terrible timing, but quarterback play was poor. I mean, poor. When you look around the league, like Ole Miss should have run away from Oklahoma. And again, Jackson Dart was a first rounder, maybe the best quarterback in the league. And you're like, well, okay. Like it didn't wow you coming from the Big 12 where we'd seen all these guys that could just sling it all over the yard for, more than a decade.
Josh, we saw that story come out this week with Texas and the reported figures of their roster. I know there's been a lot to do about how accurate that is or not. I saw it and I'm like, first of all, I don't know why people are still, I guess we're just so conditioned to go like, oh, we're not paying that much money. And it's like, it's okay, guys. You can pay whatever you want to. But I also didn't really scoff when I saw that figure like some people. I was just like, well, I don't know. I could totally see it if you're adding in house settlement and all this, whatever else. Your thoughts on that story, and is that surprising to you that money like that's being doled out? And where do you think Oklahoma falls in line with all of that?
40 seems a little high to me, if that's what we're talking about. But like 30s, absolutely can believe that. No, I don't think there's any question. Because, I mean, the thing that people forget is Texas is one of those few programs that's playing with a different level of money than everybody else. Like Ohio State's in that conference. Like there's a few schools, Oregon, like they just have more than everybody else does. And you have to live with that. And it's they keep talking about NFL model. It reminds me in a lot of ways of baseball. Like, you've got money. Can you be smart enough to maximize what resources you do have? Because I don't know if we're ever going to get to a level where it's truly a salary capped, it's balanced, it's fair. Because I don't think, it's going to be really hard to get rid of collectives and those things. Now, early on in NIL, I thought there were twofold problems for Oklahoma. I thought at first they didn't have it organized. They weren't running it very well. I think they were very concerned about, like, we're going to overcommit to this, and then the NCAA is going to come down and make rules and change things, and then we're going to be left kind of stranded. The second thing, I don't think Brent Venables wanted it to be this way. I think he was very Dabo Swinney-esque, where it's just like, well, no, we don't want to be that kind of program. That's the kind of program you have to be if you want to compete at this level. And I think Oklahoma was slow to accept that. And I still think there is a kind of like what you're talking about, where there's this idea of like, well, that's wrong. We shouldn't do that. No, that's okay now. Like, we can talk about it. It's out in the open. Everybody knows it's happening. Like, and there are, big money corporate sponsors that are more than willing to help Arch Manning or, be part of whatever you want to do. So I think that's the thing. Coaches in a lot of ways are having to break that mindset, not just of like it happens, because they all knew it happened, but like it's okay. Like this is okay. You can embrace this.
Yeah, and Oklahoma. There was a comment from Greg Byrne at Alabama. He said, "If anyone thinks, and this is Alabama, if anyone thinks we're going to be able to just kind of just keep this up, even like we're not just loaded. We've got money, but not loaded, as you mentioned, the Texas, Ohio State, and a few others have." Did that surprise you when you even heard Alabama say that? Because if Alabama says that, then yeah, someone like Oklahoma probably is in the same boat.
I can tell you that the OU fans are like sitting there screaming at me, because this is something I've said all along. This idea that college donors are going to be able to shill out $40 million every year with no return on their investment. People are like, well, NFL owners do it. First of all, NFL owners are billionaires, and they see some of their money come back. They get it through ticket sales. They get it through revenue. These guys are giving money. It's not even a charitable donation. This is just money they are lighting on fire. And these aren't billionaires. These are millionaires. These are successful attorneys, car dealers. Like, these are not guys just with limitless cash, at least like in the terms of these kind of dollars and cents. Like, that's just not the way these work. These are tiny little college towns for the most part that don't have those kind of businesses in place to restore them, to every year refill the coffers. So I think that is absolutely something people have to accept. This will change. Like, they are hitting a wall. What I think is going to be interesting is, can the many curtail the few? Can they get it to where there really is a salary cap for 97% of the programs in the country who want one? Obviously, I understand that Texas, Ohio State, Oregon, they're like, no, we want free market, because they can outspend everybody for eternity. Like that's the nature of those systems. So I wonder, can the good rule the few? And that's going to be, I think, to me, that's the question of what this all comes down to when finally we face some of the things. I'm one that, like, you got to make these guys employees. Like, that's the only way you're ever going to get anything done. You've got to have collective bargaining. Like, you're going to have, and I know people hate that. Because it's a change. Like, I get it. And we've seen so many changes in college football, but the only way you get this under control and get some of the transfer portal where guys are in the portal 4 straight years, like, you've got to have some contractual obligation from their side as well as yours.
Yeah, and or signing on a Saturday morning NIL deal and a transfer, and then 6 to 10 hours later you might sign another one, and that's got to be something that is buttoned up a little bit. We've mentioned Mateer and Ott and others, and maybe not even a transfer. Josh, give me a name or two of a player, no matter the position, that you think is a breakout season waiting to happen.
The guy I would start with, and I think some know him pretty well at this point, but I would say Nash, like, he's a guy that could end up on All-American lists by the end of the year. And that's Jaden Jackson, the sophomore defensive tackle, guy they got from IMG Academy. And the great story about Jaden is he was the +1 of his IMG recruiting class, because Oklahoma also got David Stone, the big 5-star that everybody in the country wanted, was an Oklahoma kid that OU had been recruiting since he was a freshman. And Jaden was a guy that, I mean, he's like 6'1", 300 pounds. He's not the guy that you walk in and are like, well, that's the guy. That's the, unbelievable player. Jaden Jackson started game 1 last year for Oklahoma on a pretty good OU defense. And that defensive line, I think, is going to be a real equalizer for Oklahoma next year, where they've lost Danny Stutzman. They've lost Billy Bowman. They've lost a lot of leadership. But you return, I mean, people don't think about this. Jaden was a freshman All-American. I think he's going to have another huge year. R. Mason Thomas was one of the top sack guys in the country, and I think 5th in the SEC last year with like 9.5 sacks. So you've got some pieces up front that we're not accustomed to seeing at Oklahoma. And you throw in, Dominic Williams, who obviously was a big portal win last year for Oklahoma from TCU, and you just go down the roster. I mean, guys, they're too deep across the front, and I can't think of a time. I mean, in some cases, they've got 3 guys. I can't think of a time since early Bob Stoops era where I could say the same. And, then those days you're talking the Tommy Harrises, the Gerald McCoys, the Dusty Dvoraceks, all these great players along the front for Oklahoma. So they're going to buy Oklahoma's back seven a little time to grow. On the offensive side of the ball, the guy that I would have said, it's going to be interesting to see, Javonte Gibson was a transfer they got in and from Arkansas Pine Bluff, was small school guy, put up like 1,500 yards though last year, and he was the talk of camp. Like everybody was just raving about the kid, that this guy's going to be special. He's like 6'2", 215. He's got NFL, all the physical traits you're looking for. One of the last practices of the year, like I think the second to last, he breaks a bone in his leg and is down. Now, the early reports are they think he's going to be back. He'll miss summer workouts and that kind of stuff, but they'll think he'll be back pretty early in the year. And if he can get back to even 85% of the rumors we were hearing, I mean, that's a difference maker for Oklahoma. And we saw last year, they need it in the pass game.
Hey, man, thanks for getting up early with us. Not that you got up any earlier, but a little bit earlier than we normally are. Josh, great to have you on the show. Thank you.
Hey, anytime, guys.
Thank you. Josh McCuistion, SoonerScoop.com, with us on Oklahoma in many different angles, from what they've added, what they lost, what are the expectations. A little grumpy in Norman, as you can imagine. They're not going to be down long. It might take another year or two. I don't know. But when you're OU, when you're some of the Blue Bloods, you might have periods of where things just aren't quite right. You might miss on a player who you thought was the building block or the quarterback or whatever. But eventually there's a reason why most of these schools that are Blue Bloods have been good for a long, long time. When we come back, Max Olson covers the transfer portal in football like a blanket. He will join us. He's next, and this is 365 Sports.
Let Camille Johnson Realtors guide you seamlessly through the process of buying your dream home or selling your current one. Commercial, farm and ranch, or residential, Camille Johnson Realtors can smoothly and successfully lead you through any transaction. With a team of 28 experienced agents who are excited about serving you, Camille Johnson Realtors services the entire greater Waco area. If you're in the market to buy or sell, contact Camille Johnson Realtors, 104 Midway Center in Woodway, or find them online at www.camillejohnson.com. Camille Johnson Realtors, elegant, charming, warm. Welcome home.
Pizza, burgers, and Bears football. There's no place around Waco that serves them all other than Bubba's 33. Come show your green and gold and enjoy some of Waco's best food and beverages while watching your favorite team, the Bears. When real Bears fans get hungry, Bubba's 33 is the #1 spot for ice-cold drinks, hand-stretched, stone-baked pizzas, and bacon-infused burgers. Join us for indoor or patio dining. Bubba's 33, Waco's restaurant and proud supporter of Baylor Bears football. Sick 'em, Bears.
Don's Humidor, your home with a 48-foot walk-in humidor with the elite cigar brands from around the world, including the #1 cigar of the year, Aging Room Cuatro Nicaragua. Plus, they have the great brands like Macanudo and Artur Fuente, Rocky Patel, Aston, and so much more. CBD, great for sore muscles, aches and pains, sleep, Vita Dreams, and anxiety, mild depression, general health and wellness. Their staff very knowledgeable on the subject. Don's Humidor in the Townwest Shopping Center off Valley Mills in Waco.
Ready to take your business to the next level? Carrion Solutions has got you covered. We deliver world-class IT consulting, including Quest On Demand and Migration Manager, M365 and Exchange migrations, Active Directory assessments, security hardening, and Windows Server upgrades. Our experts specialize in consulting, monitoring, support, and managed IT services. We promise vision, professionalism, and unbeatable value. Satisfaction guaranteed. If you're not happy, we make it right. Remember the name Carrion Solutions. For more info, email sales@carrionsolutions.com or visit carrionsolutions.com. That's CARRION solutions.com. Carrion Solutions, IT success guaranteed.
At Ideal MRI, we feel blessed to be part of the Waco community. We're a small family business here in Central Texas. At times like this, the cost of healthcare has never been more important. And unfortunately, significant illnesses and injuries still occur. And that's why Ideal MRI is open and here to serve you through this difficult time. So if you need an MRI, ask your doctor about Ideal MRI. You can schedule online in minutes at idealmri.com or call 833-IDEAL-MRI.
This is 365 Sports. Text us at 254-339-1122. The text line is sponsored by Riverbend Liquor and Wine, with the most extensive variety of craft beer in Waco. A hidden gem on Lakeshore Drive and 19th Street.
Craig Smoak with me, David Smoak, 365 Sports on this Friday morning. A little bit different hours. We appreciate those of you joining us, and it will be available on our YouTube channel, 365 Sports, and Max Olson, ESPN.com, who covers the transfer portal like you can't imagine, joins us on this Friday morning. Max, thank you very much for your time. The portal closed, and yet there's always news. Let me ask you this. Let's start with this. What are, or who are, in your opinion, the highest rated difference makers left in the portal that you think could make an immediate impact?
Yeah, guys, that list is dwindling a little bit as players make their commitments and get signed and get rolling on their new program. But I think the top guy still out there would be AJ Halsey from Houston. He's a guy who is a proven starter, was an all Big 12 player last season, certainly a ball hawk, guy that's, played over 2,000 career snaps. And so, at this point, guys like that, you don't typically see them hit the spring portal window. He decided to move on after their spring game, which was a surprise. And, he's got a lot of teams vouching for him. I think at this point, LSU is probably the favorite. And that would be another, just a cherry on top to certainly one of the top 2 or 3 portal classes in the country. But yeah, a lot of demand for AJ Halsey. Miami was in the mix as well. I think he's probably the best out there right now.
Max, who are the couple of teams that maybe have piqued your interest the most with what they've done through the portal this offseason?
Just overall or the spring period?
Yeah. I guess let's do spring period.
Yeah, I mean, I would say spring period, it's been interesting to see, certainly from a Big 12 standpoint. I think West Virginia is one of those that you look at and say, I'm curious to see how all the pieces fit together there. That's been one of the more dramatic roster rebuilds that we've really seen this offseason. And part of that is obviously they had some really good players leave the program this offseason after Neil Brown was fired. But that has certainly cleared room for Rich Rod to go out and get his guys. And I think by my count, West Virginia has brought in 43 transfers this offseason. So just it's going to be a completely different looking team next year. And I think that's interesting to see. Can they find some difference makers there? They brought in Jalen Knighton from SMU, who's a good running back. They were able to bring some good guys with them from Jacksonville State. They got Jamori Robinson from UTSA, who's the American Conference Defensive Player of the Year last year. So I think that's one of the, some of these teams that are just in these kind of massive rebuilds, like we saw from Colorado a couple of years ago. You're very curious to see, can they find enough guys? Can they get enough competitive depth that they could be totally different, like we saw from Indiana last year?
Yeah, I think West Virginia is super intriguing and don't know what to expect at all, but definitely they're more interesting. And obviously, if I had expanded that question and said, overall, Texas Tech would be the first team off the top of your lips, right?
Yeah, and I think that's probably end of the day, they'll probably finish with the number one portal class. I mean, LSU's done an amazing job of getting difference makers, but I just think what Texas Tech has done, what they've been willing to do this offseason is pretty remarkable. And I think I know that probably around the state there's a lot of just sort of eye rolling of I think they can just sort of buy their way to the top. We'll see about that. But the players that James Blanchard has brought in this offseason, these are NFL players. This is not just these guys that are overhyped because they're in the portal and they're getting all these offers. These are guys with NFL futures. And so, to add what they've added on the defensive line, I think they feel like they've got one of the best defensive lines in the country now, especially after they added David Bailey from Stanford this spring. Really fortified the offensive line. I like the playmakers they added. That's another one where you're just okay, you got new coordinators, you got a ton of new players. You need Barry Morton to stay healthy. A lot of stuff's got to come together here. But yeah, certainly in terms of flipping their fortunes from an 8-win season, Texas Tech's done an unbelievable job. Yeah,
they need to win the games that kind of tripped them up. Spike Dykes used to do that back in the day. He might beat Texas one week and then lose to North Texas the next. So they got to win those that have been a problem for them, and it's not easy. Does Micah, this is kind of a tongue-in-cheek, does Micah Hudson count as a 5-star transfer in?
Yeah, it depends on what website you're looking at. It's a good question, because honestly, I think that's a thing that like the industry is like still trying to figure out. How are we supposed to handle this stuff? Like Jonte Cook went from Texas to Washington, got dismissed at Washington, just committed to Syracuse yesterday. Like, is he a 5-star still, or how are we supposed to look at him? Like, I think that certainly, I think for Micah Hudson, it's a smart decision to come back, because I think if you have a short run at Texas Tech, a very short run at A&M, and then things don't work out at that next school, like, man, for being a guy who was ranked right up there with Jeremiah Smith and Ryan Williams and all those guys, like, you're in a really tough spot if your next move is not a good move. So I think it's a good decision on his part, a mature decision. I don't think Micah Hudson's going to come in and have a 1,000-yard season this year. I don't know how big of an impact he's going to make. I think he's really got to put in the work to earn the trust of his coaches and teammates again, and earn a role in this offense. And obviously, they've recruited at an extremely high level this offseason to add more receivers and playmakers. So how this all works out for him, we shall see. But I think it's going to be a process here of him, working his way back onto the field.
So the Micah Hudson, I've been thinking about that. Nico Iamaleava obviously was a 5-star player now at UCLA. How many of the transfers, and there may be more than I realize, were actually 5-star players coming out of high school? Do you know?
It's a good question. Now that the dust is like settled, that would be a good thing to go count up. I mean, you do see a pretty like decent number of them. And I think obviously the quarterback position, you're just going to constantly see movement with those guys, and there's just very few. At this point in this sport, there's just very few examples of like the Trevor Lawrence, like 5-star, 3 and done, like go out and do everything you want to do in 3 years and go pro and be a first round pick and all that. Like, we just don't, as we saw with Quinn Ewers last week, we just don't see those stories happen that often nowadays with all the stuff that has changed in the sport and the way that the money influences it and the COVID years and all this kind of stuff. So I think you'll continue to see a lot of 5-star quarterbacks make moves. And then, I think the 5-stars that hit the portal, I think more often than not, those are going to be the guys where things haven't worked out, where they've had injuries, where they've had issues, where they're just not, things haven't gone the way that they anticipated. But that doesn't mean that that doesn't mean coaches are any less interested. I think there's still, you want to look at the tape and all that kind of stuff, but then you still kind of default to like, okay, well, everybody thought he was good 2 years ago, so we probably should take a chance on him.
Max, when you saw the headline or kind of the conversation going around the last couple of days revolving around Texas and the reported amount of money they're spending, I know there's been some debate on how accurate the number is and a little bit of pushback from Texas. And there's also just that weird stretch that we're still in where people are getting used to being able to talk freely and openly about money and not feel like the NCAA is going to come calling, right? But did you balk at that number, or did you go like, okay, I could totally see that? 35-40 million for a roster.
I think in this specific example of Texas, I don't think it's 35 to 40 million. I know Chip Brown has reported it's closer to 25 to 30. Honestly, I think that probably makes more sense. One thing, there's a lot of this stuff that's just new, so I understand that people are still kind of catching up to it.
Yeah.
One thing you got to remember, these schools are not devoting $20 million of revenue sharing to their football program. They're going to devote like 75% of that or so. Texas will probably, I think they'll from rev share, they'll get probably like $13.5 million for their roster this year. And the rest of that comes from the collective, just like we've seen with Texas Tech. But, if Texas people push back and say Texas Tech has spent more, I think that's 100% right. And I think part of that is like, look, talent retention is very expensive. When you have Colin Simmons and Ryan Wingo and like the Anthony Hill and the studs that they have, those guys, are worth a lot. They'd be worth way more in the open market. One thing that Texas sources have always said is that Quinn Ewers and Arch Manning are not taking collective money because they get so much outside money from actual like real NIL, real brand deals and all that kind of stuff. So, it's not like Arch Manning is eating up $4 million of your cap there either. So I think it's like, and then you look at Texas portal class, like Texas battled with Texas Tech for Lee Hunter, who's a guy that's, going to make definitely over $2 million this year. Like that guy'd probably be at Texas if Texas had $40 million, So I think you look at their portal class, they found some good fits, but they haven't brought in a bunch of superstars this offseason. So I think probably 25 to 30 is probably about right, just what I see on paper. And certainly we're going to see a bunch of teams that are in that range. And, I think if you're going to spend at that level, then obviously people are going to have playoff expectations and they're going to expect Texas to be in the hunt for a national title again.
So if they ever wrap up and sign and move forward with the House settlement and that $20.5 million revenue sharing, and a lot of that goes to football. Max, I've kind of heard conflicting reports. We had a great attorney on. He was fantastic yesterday, Mulvaney, and I've talked to those at GXG Elite here, and of course there's the Texas Tech contingent with Cody Campbell being most of the attention, but the millionaires and billionaires they have.
Yeah.
How much will NIL collectives impact post-House settlement, and how many of them might just dissipate and morph into the school itself?
It's a really good question, and I think that the answer is a little bit like the perspective and the answer is a little bit different everywhere you go. I have talked to some GMs who think that their collective will probably kind of fold up and go internal, and I think some of the places where maybe it has been a little bit of a struggle to raise a ton of money up from the collective side, like you're kind of comfortable with that kind of moving in house. But I think that we are also like, there's a little bit of like a bubble that's going to come in December here that I think you kind of like the schools like Texas Tech or Texas that, that are spending at a high level. Like, I think you're still going to count on the collectives to step in here and step up, because you guys understand what these players are getting paid for 2025 obviously far exceeds $13 million at many of these schools, right? And so you're not going to go to your players at the end of the season and say, all right, hey, great job this year. Obviously, we're going to need you to take a pay cut next year. Like, the players and their agents are not going to be cool with that at all. So you're going to need to find a way to at least maintain this level of spending or come close to it. And so, we'll see if like is this cap like upheld? Do people just go, spend far beyond it and there's no enforcement? Like, we'll see how people circumvent that stuff. But I do think there's still an important role here probably for collectives, because there's just a lot more money that's going to go into this roster next year. When I say $20.5 million, guys, that's for the whole school year. That's not just for the football season, right? So like, how school that money is you got to be very careful, and you're going to need more of it, obviously, for 2026.
Yeah, I can't wait for it to be signed, so then we know what else there's still going to be lawsuits. There's still going to be people challenging the portal. Do you think we'll ever get to a time, though, where they limit the number of times you can transfer, and or, as you saw, players who signed NIL agreements, no matter the sport, and then turned around and signed with somebody else? Can they ever curtail that, or is that going to always be a legal issue?
I think if they become employees and they are signing multi-year agreements, then that's probably how you curb the transfers a little bit. It's just that guys are having those buyout provisions, and it is costly, and there is a hurdle to just jumping from school to school. Obviously you've got the Arkansas case right now where they're going after two of their players that transferred, including Nico's brother. Will they? In Arkansas's case, they aren't just seeking the money they've already paid Madden Yamaliava. They're seeking more than that. They're seeking a percentage of what they were going to pay him this year. So, if that stuff is successful, and I don't know that it will be, but it might just be arbitrated and they compromise. But I think that's probably going to be like the roadblock to transferring in the future that these schools are trying to set up, is just, hey, if you want to transfer, you can transfer. And we're not going to limit what schools you can go to, but you're going to have to pay us money. And I think that's not a thing that everybody's going to be willing to do, nor are the schools that you're going to going to be willing to pay those off for you. So how that stuff plays out here over the next few months, I think, is really interesting, because certainly the NCAA is not able to enforce any of its rules around transfers at this point. So really, it's just going to have to come down to contracts, and can you create a system, whether or not they're employees, that is binding, and you have to stay at school.
Max, last thing for you, because you keep up with the portal. and it is such a huge part of college athletics today. Do you go to a certain site and follow it like we used to follow, for example, just high school rankings from various sites? Do you go to an NCAA portal site? Do you have the alerts? How does that work? Or is sometimes that information fed to you before it even reaches truly the portal?
Yeah, it's a blend of a lot of stuff. Certainly nowadays it's a lot of communication with agents about guys who are going to go in the portal and where they're going to visit and when they're committing, all that kind of stuff. Certainly the folks at 24/7 and On3 do a great job of covering this as well and of tracking who's going where. So there's a piece of that, and certainly you try to monitor the portal and who's going in and where they're signing, all that kind of stuff. It's kind of a blend of all those things, and it's pretty time consuming at this time of year. But I enjoy it. I'm sure there are fans that are quite frustrated by it, and you want to feel like you want to feel like high school recruiting matters and that you're going to get a guy in your program who's going to be there for 4 or 5 years and develop. And obviously the model is like totally changed. And I understand the frustration of it, but I think that just the way that roster management and player acquisition and all that is changing right now. It's changing on a daily basis, and it's been pretty fascinating to cover.
Thank you for getting on early with us, Max. Appreciate it. Have a great weekend. And thank you so much for your time. Max Olson, ESPN. Lots of good stuff from him on. I really wanted to know about the Micah Hudson. Do you get credit for getting a 5-star that you got credit for 2 years ago or whatever it was? Not that the stars matter, but they do. That's a lot of people. The coaches say they don't pay attention to it. They do. Some of them more than others. Fans, of course, do. We do. And that doesn't mean after the draft ended on Saturday night that there weren't a lot of players that were never drafted. I mean, that were never really ranked. Like Ashton Genty, yeah, people kind of knew of him, but not really. The Cam Ward story is still phenomenal. Anything to button up this first hour, Craig?
No. Good to have Max and Josh on to talk about the portal. It can get kind of exhausting. The portal seems like it never closes, but I guess we're at a point now where it kind of is what it is, and there's some stragglers, but the most important pieces have all kind of landed where they needed to, and it's a mess still, but it seems like maybe it's starting to become a little clearer with the House settlement, how all this will look. But just interested to get their thoughts, on the Texas story, which again I don't think is a big deal. I don't think it's worth talking about for days on end. But for guys who cover the portal, or a guy like Josh who's a direct rival, or covers a direct rival who's competing for the same types of players, I was interested to hear what they had to say on that. And so I think kind of across the board, people feel like that number is a little bit higher than reality. But like I said yesterday, even if it's not, I don't care. If they're spending 35, 40 million, I'm not going to sit there and go like, there's no way. That's incredible. I can't believe you'd say, like, if they are, they are. If they're not, they're not. Either way, everybody's spending tons of money. And, I'm sure Texas is right up there like they are with every other category. So, we'll see how it pays off for them. It's definitely paid off the last couple of years, whether they've spent 15, 20, 30, whatever it's been. They know what they're doing over there right now in Austin, and we'll see if the folks in Norman can get their act together as well.
And Chris Del Conte made it clear that in some sports where they used to have 11.3 scholarships, they're going to go with 30 full, whether it's baseball or other sports, if you can do it. And so that is going to be fun to watch along the way. By the way, we appreciate it. We're not done. Coming up in the next hour, Kenneth Davis from Big Ten Country, actually on the Chicago Bears NFL draft. Also, Josh Davis from the Philly Special. He covers the Eagles, and Paul Catalina had a chance to visit with him about the defending champions. Later in the show, the top 5. Andrew Valade, of course, the polls that we do every day, thanks to our sponsors. But we have another hour left. 365 Sports for Garrett Ross, Emery Winter, Andrew Valade, Craig Smoak, and me, at least for this first hour. Back in a moment.
Automatic Chef is your local vending, office coffee, and micro market provider, delivering outstanding service to break rooms all over Central Texas for over 50 years. Automatic Chef brings the best products to your location at the best prices. With hundreds of choices in fresh food, coffee, snacks, and drinks, let Automatic Chef tailor a break room solution to your needs. Make break time great again with Automatic Chef. Automatic Chef Canteen, 6900 Imperial Drive in Waco, or online online at automaticchef.com.
Baylor alumni are more than 160,000 strong. When we all join hands to support our university, we don't just move the needle, we move mountains. Working together, we create life-changing opportunities for students on the field, in the classroom, in the laboratory, and in life for generations to come. So get connected, get involved. Learn how at baylor.edu/alumni.
There are 26 letters in the alphabet, over 600,000 words in the dictionary, and just 3 of them said together can change everything. Let's order pizza. Those 3 words lead to dough made from scratch and 3 fresh signature cheeses that blanket golden crust in a heavenly melt on Marco's Pizza that'll blow your mind. So visit marcos.com to order and stop by Marco's Pizza in Belmead, China Spring, Woodway, and in Robinson. Marco's. Pizza lovers get it.
Penny Clinic Men's Healthcare in Woodway is now proud to offer you men an exceptional weight management body sculpting product called semaglutide, also known as Ozempic or Wegovy. Semaglutide is an FDA-approved weight management medication. Once-a-week injections of this powerful medication offers an average body fat weight loss of 20% within the first year of treatment. In addition to body sculpting, semaglutide also normalizes blood sugars and has the clinical research proof of reducing blood pressure, cholesterol, stroke, and heart attack risk. If you're like most men and you have stubborn fat that will just not respond to typical diets and exercise, then help is finally here. Semaglutide, affordable, highly effective. Google search Penny Clinic Waco and reach out to the Penny Clinic team today for a free consultation with Dr. Penny to see if semaglutide is right for you. Go to pennycliniclowt.com.
This is 365 Sports. Enjoying the show? Hit the like button and subscribe.
I know that when I say this, people are going to say you're crazy because you're going to look at this. But if you told me that Kenneth Davis and I were separated at birth, I would maybe believe you. And we could go on the Henry Louis Gates and he'd be like, yeah, it doesn't make sense to me either. It doesn't, but hey, it is. Yeah, one of my favorite guests, Kenneth and I have fun every time we do this. Usually we're talking college football, but the NFL draft wrapped up, just a few days ago. One of the teams that did the absolute very best, which I know it's like a weird thing for Bears fans to hear, but the Bears did really well. I mean, they get another huge tight end to pair with Cole Kmet and Colston Loveland. They get Luther Burden. They address needs all throughout. I know that maybe fans were hoping for, like an Ashton Genty, Omarion Hampton running back to fit into that Ben Johnson offense. But Kenneth, this is a really, really good draft for the Bears. And they appear to have, checked off a lot of boxes for Ben Johnson in year one.
Paul, and we've all been through this enough to know we have to wait a few years to kind of know exactly how good this draft is going to be. And I'll say you from the Chicago standpoint, there were people that were fiending for Ashton Gentry. I wasn't one of them, and that's as far as moving up. And I don't think any of us thought he was going to fall to 10. If he had fallen to 10 and the Bears selected him, I think I would have been fine with it. Also, I was a big Ty Warren guy. I was not a Colston Loveland guy. And of course, I come on here and Penn State. I know Garrett, you're there.
Yeah.
Penn State's been kicking my you-know-what all year, so you know why I was a Ty Warren guy. But I understood I watched Colston Loveland enough to know how good he is. So it wasn't like they got someone that was on a whole different tier than Ty Warren. And when you look at the fit, it doesn't bother you. I've wanted Ben Johnson to be the Bears head coach for 2 seasons now. I can't want someone who seems like one of the better offensive minds within the NFL to come in now. What we all know has control. He's higher. He's well paid and paid more than the general manager. General manager was on the hot seat. I'm sure if push came to shove and if the general manager had to be tossed to get Ben Johnson here, that probably would have taken place. So I'm sure Ben Johnson is really throwing the hammer down, and he won a Coast and Loveland. You look at the Sam LaPorta comp, you understand why. Luther Burden falling to the Bears. And let's also not act like there's not some knocks on Luther Burden when it comes to route running, dedication to the route when he's not involved in it. Growing up, we know that's always been something about how DBs and defensive players have said, well, you kind of can know what's going on by how the guy gets off the line. And that has to be something that has to improve here. But the Bears luckily have a Chicagoan or Chicagoland player and former Steeler in Antoine Randall L. here as their wide receivers coach. So we'll see how that takes place. It definitely was a good draft. There were some players that the Bears didn't get, or positions, I should say. I think everyone would have liked to see the Bears get a defensive end. But a lot of the times it seemed like if you look at like Trayvon Henderson, as far as running backs, I'll get to end, and it's the same thing. It seems like when the Bears were going to get that player, and that player was selected, they moved down because they didn't have another player comparable to that player. And I think that's what happened with them at defensive end. They did improve the defensive line with Shamar Turner from Texas A&M, and you guys can probably give me more information about him down at Texas A&M.
I would tell you that he was the more productive Shamar of the two Shamars that were on the defensive line at A&M. Now, look, Shamar Stewart is a freak athlete, and they had, like, if you watch A&M, they had to account for him like a lot. But Nick Scorton's on the other end, and Shamar Turner, Garrett, I know you were nodding your head too.
Yeah, he's good.
Like he will get in everybody's grill. Like he's that kind of player. When I think of an old school Bears defensive tackle, I think he fits that. He's big, strong, athletic, not afraid to do it. He's a Roy Miller type, I think. Maybe he's a little bit like taller and leaner in that regard, but he's still a big dude. So I mean, look, they had 3 second round picks, right? So they got 4 guys that you can I don't know if you want to call them starters, because I really do like Ozzie Trapillo from Boston College.
BC.
From BC. He's really good and strong and can every draft I flipped to said, like, this guy's probably a day one starter, if it works out that way. Like they had their starting offensive line, I know, set, but that's been the big issue. Like they brought in the 3 trades they made, I think this gives an opportunity to find out if Darnell Wright belongs here or here. So of course, I'm a big Ben Johnson fan. I'd hoped the Cowboys would hire him as their head coach, but that was never going to happen because it's innovative. So I like that at least in year one, you're seeing what kind of team he wants to build. But like you said, the draft is the ultimate crapshoot. When people pull out draft grades, I'm like, okay. I mean, you don't know what, like, they may have looked good in college that they might've been hurt that whole time and playing through it. And then they get to the NFL and they just never get better. I think one of the things that people don't understand is okay, when you're on a college team, you don't, you're the best player from your high school. So is everybody else. When you are on a pro team, you're the best player from your college team. So is everybody else. So it gets harder and harder and harder as you go along. But I mean, is there positive buzz around the Bears that there hasn't been because of Ben Johnson, because of some of the things that are going on? Or is this it's been since 1985. Is this a scarred fan base that needs to see it to believe it?
Oh, that's a great question. Definitely a scarred fan base, but hope springs eternal. I am usually a realist. I do try to sprinkle some sunshine in, but I'm not going to lie to you. So some people don't necessarily like that. And I like that about Bears fans to a degree. Particularly there's some fan bases here where you worry about just donating your money to an organization and the organization not trying. The Bears have been trying. Back about 20 years ago, to knock on the Bears was that they were cheap. Bears haven't been cheap in a long time. To go deeper into your question, I think fans have gotten used to this is a third probably offseason where it's been viewed the Bears have won the offseason. So I think that there's a smidget of wait and see. Because we won it when we got the trade from the Panthers, right? Then we won it where we got the quarterback that everyone wanted last year with Caleb Williams, right? And now you look at this year and Burden being the last part of the trade to Carolina, and how the Bears did well. You mentioned the fact that they made a couple of trades to bring in the offensive lineman and signed Dahlman from the Atlanta Falcons. But I think the big thing, and I want to get back on the Ben Johnson part real quick. Ryan Poles, Bears general manager, has been keeping his powder dry when it comes to the amount of money that the Bears have invested in their players. The Bears, after his first season, they were cash strapped and he got rid of Mack and got players up out of here and wasn't going to re-sign Smith. They've been one of the teams to have the most money at the end of the season. And this was the first year where that money was spent, and it was spent on something that I think tells us, and I think it's indicative of what we thought Ben Johnson was going to do, and that was to fortify the offensive line. I don't think Ryan Poles would have spent the money and the draft capital that he did to fortify from guard to guard when we're talking about Tooney, Dahlman, and Jonah Jackson. I don't think they would have done all three of them. And the Bears had holes outside of Darnell Wright, and we're still waiting to see who Darnell Wright is and can he get back to being the player that they thought they were getting out of Tennessee. Then you mentioned Trapillo, and one of the little questions that's slightly being bantered about here is, could we see perhaps Wright getting some reps at left, with the fact that Bears left tackle Braxton Jones had a late season injury and looks to get back before the beginning of the season, but there'll still be reps. And then you had they drafted a player out of Yale last year, Corinne. I'm not going to batter his last name right now, but he's been a third-round pick, and Ryan Poles has missed. He got Velus Jones out of Tennessee a few years ago. He's been really hasn't hit when it comes to third-round picks. So there's a little bit of trepidation when you talk about Bears and Ryan Poles and kind of getting players that are projects. So looking at what they've done, it seems sound, and it definitely seems like they're going to put their best foot forward to get Caleb Williams to the next level. A lot of that has to be on Caleb, but I think they have the best offensive mind in the league that was available to find out if Caleb Williams can be as good as what Bears fans have hoped with them bringing him in to the fold.
How do you feel about the future of the Bears not being in Soldier Field and being at a different stadium?
I hate it.
Yeah.
I live so that if you ever see Sunday Night Football, that road that's right there where traffic, it used to actually be Lakeshore Drive used to be on both sides of Soldier Field. So out by the lake was the northbound lane and the southbound lane was on the interior side. And then after the Bears moved to U of I and they renovated and put the toilet bowl in there, they made both lanes on the outside so it could be more parkland for the museum campus. It's a part of my life. I'm not that old to where the Bears played at Wrigley Field. The Bears have always played at Soldier Field. I think now, of course, you're talking about taxpayer money and you're talking about billionaires wanting money that they should be able to fork up themselves. So I understand, even though if the Bears move to Arlington Heights, they're still going to have to use taxpayers' money regardless. I think for the city of Chicago and downtown Chicago, it would be wonderful to have events like Final Fours, everything here, and people could leave that place and go downtown. Why would you want to go to Arlington and then have to bus it back downtown to party in the city? So for me, I think Soldier Field would be, as a fan, I've always said this, though. If I was the Bears ownership, I would have always owned my own stadium. The Bears would have had to, the city would have had to sell me majority of Soldier Field, if not all of it, a long time ago. I wouldn't have played this game. I wouldn't have had a franchise worth $4 billion without owning the stadium. I mean, because imagine with the stadium how much the place is worth. So I understand why. I'm not going to like it. It does seem like that Arlington Heights is we've even heard from Bears president that Kevin Warren that is back in play. He, of course, wants the Bears to be downtown, but I'm sure the Bears want to get shovels in the ground and they own the land. And if anybody hasn't seen the amount of land from the old racetrack is vast. Like, it's so much more space. Even if they put it at Soldier Field is, it's not comparable to the amount of space that they would have to build casinos, hotels, all the things that they can do out there. But what are they going to do when the Bears are bad? Like, that's the thing. And a lot of times the Bears have been bad. That's not to say that fans won't show up, but how long are people going to want to go to the suburbs to do something? Where here in Chicago, this isn't Detroit. This isn't the Commanders moving back to Washington, D.C. in a few years. Our teams have always played within the confines of the city. So this would be something different for Bears fans, but some people, I'm sure, will be fine with them moving to the suburbs and maybe closer to them. Some people may be, frightened to come downtown because, the kids like to go down there and run around the city, but that's what major big cities are about for the most part, as long as nobody really gets hurt.
Yeah. No, I look, if I'm and I've been to Chicago 3-4 times in my life. If I'm a sports fan living in that city, I want to be able to get on public transportation as much as I can and get somewhere. I want it, the traffic is going to be terrible no matter what, but anytime I can get, Soldier Field, Wrigley, United Center, like whatever it is, if I can get there without much headache, that's what I want, because there's a ton of people. And if you move it outside the city, look, the Cowboys live, they're in Arlington, and it's the only place that the dart rail doesn't go to because of parking. And so that's what you run the risk of, is there might be, they might send some public transportation out there, but it's not going to be it's not going to drop you off right in front, right? There's going to be some money-making aspect to it in the suburbs that doesn't exist in the city. That's what always troubles me about it. So, Kenneth, I always love having you on. We on the Triple Option, the other podcast I do, today's the last day, and we're sundowning it for a little while and then retooling. I would like to get you to commit to be a regular guest, because it's going to be sports and pop culture and comedy, and I think you're perfect for it. So right now, in front of the people, my long-lost brother, Kenneth Davis.
Definitely. I look forward to it. Garrett, I look forward to coming for you. I want to know about LSU players. I haven't forgotten about you, Garrett.
I don't want that smoke.
I want to know. I want the smoke. I just want to be informed, too. It's not even just about the smoke. I want to get those insights. I'm a big SEC fan, but it's definitely different from someone that's maniacal about their fan base. So it's not just I'm coming at you. I also want the insight because, again, like I said, I love SEC football, Roll Tide all day, especially on Saturdays. Yeah,
Kenneth Davis, go check him out. Name the Bears podcast again. It's the
right now we're doing 3 Men in a Pod with the host from our former NBC podcast, because NBC Sports went dark. Here in Chicago, they got out of the RSN business. For anybody know, regional sports networks haven't been as profitable, so they decided to wash their hands of it. And right now, follow me at That's Davis and 3 Man Pod with Josh Schrock from the Under Center podcast, former Bears insider, and of course my guy James Shapiro from Big Ten Country. We have formed Voltron and then Triumvirate, and we will bring you all that you need sports wise.
I love it, Kenneth. I love it. I'm subscribing right now. That's Kenneth Davis. Please look him up. This is 365 Sports. Another Davis, Joshua Davis from the Philly Special podcast, comes up next.
It's pleasant. It's different than any other dentist office. I really feel like they care. And it's not that you're here for 2 hours waiting on someone to take care of you. It's quick and easy, and I bring my kids, and my kids love being here too. They really love the treasure box. Staff is really nice and accommodating, real friendly. You feel more like home. It's not sterile looking. Everybody has their own personalized rooms with decorations and decor, and they'll even have a blanket for you when it's cold. I've recommended people to actually come here, and they are patients now. I really love it here. It feels like family.
Right now at Berg Colgin Ford, we're bringing you an offer that's as big as America. Employee pricing for everyone. You pay what they pay. That means you drive home a new Ford F-150, Bronco Sport, Expedition, Super Duty. From America, for America. Employee pricing for everyone at BK Ford. Looking to sell your vehicle? Get top dollar for yours today. Don't miss out. Employee pricing is available for a limited time. Visit us anytime at bkford.com. Experience better at BK Ford.
I'll never get used to this. I'll never get used to this. This is how I wanna live. I'll never get used to this. I'll never get used to this.
Whatever it is you wrangle, whatever seeds you sow, no matter what you nurture or what you choose to grow, at Texas Farm Bureau Insurance, we're proud to protect all Texans.
An old friend of ours, Josh Davis, used to work with us at the radio station back in the days. He's done very well for himself with the Philly Special podcast, Baylor grad. Josh, look, I know that you're high on the hog right now, doing a Philadelphia Eagles podcast, being an Eagles fan. They are doing absolutely everything right. And the thing is, it's funny because I compare them to the Cowboys quite often because the Cowboys are in their division, and the Eagles are not afraid to take risks. They take a lot of risks, but they also make like really smart moves. And look, this year in the draft, they moved around, which they do, and they have the liberty to do. But starting off, they're like, all right, well, we really want Jahad Campbell. We need a linebacker, to add to our stable of monsters. And we'll just trade up one spot and make sure that nobody else comes and gets him. They did that. And then things just kind of fall to them other places. What is Howie Roseman doing? What kind of wizard is he? Did he make some kind of deal at the crossroads? Like, it's unbelievable how they have also rebounded from just like 3 years ago, not being very good, and then just kind of retooled the whole thing.
It is pretty ridiculous, quite honestly. It's awesome being an Eagles fan, as you said there, but you're right. I don't know if it's what is Howie Roseman doing correctly or right, or what is it the rest of the league that's doing wrong? It's like every single time these certain players that are towards the top of the list that we're looking after is like, okay, I think about last year, and Quinyon Mitchell was the top of my list for the Eagles to get because they wanted to get a corner. Like, yeah, but you're going to have to trade up for that. And nope, lo and behold, gets the draft day, and he just falls to the spot of the Eagles. And then, oh, by the way, let's just get Cooper DeJean. Let's double up. Let's get Cooper DeJean in the second round. The year before that, you got Jalen Carter going all the way to 9. That doesn't make sense. Best player in the draft, in my opinion, but I'm a bias, of course, but still one of the best players all the way to 9. Nolan Smith, you pick him up at 30. So I don't know. It fascinates me every single year with the draft, but it's just one of those of Jahad Campbell. I was like, is he still available there? I mean, 31, it makes no sense. And then it makes it even a better feeling whenever, you get the report or rumor that the Eagles were like super close to trading up to 22 to take Jahad Campbell there with the Chargers. So, sometimes you're good, sometimes you're lucky. In that instance there, whether it was someone didn't report it or it was just last minute and it was kind of the Chargers backing out, didn't really want to do the deal, whatever it was, the Eagles only had to give up a 5th round draft pick to move up one spot and, make sure they get Jahad Campbell. So I love it. I can't quite put my finger on it. I don't know. It just seems like the draft falls the right way, the best way to Howie Roseman. He knows that he's going to recoup those picks later, so he loves to trade back, move around in the draft. But I think that there was a report from a couple different guys, Jordan Schultz, maybe, and others, of saying like anonymous GMs are blocking the 215 number because they don't want to take calls from Howie Roseman. But yeah, if the trades are coming, he's going to offer those type of deals. I don't blame you. You're like, yeah, let's not, because we'll probably get burned somehow. But it's good at Eagles fan.
You know, I want to say it was the Cowboys traded out with them to get Micah Parsons a few years ago, and that's the only one that's ever worked out for both of them. And when they did it, I was like, Jerry, don't do it. Don't do it. Like, he's going to draft a player that's going to haunt your dreams forever. And you're like, oh, this is a dang good deal. We don't, we didn't get the cornerback we want. Might as well trade down. It's just 2 picks. It's 2 picks. Just 2, what's it going to hurt? And I was like, oh, this is going to be like Donovan McNabb all over again, where, for the 5-year period of the best of his career, the Cowboys could not do anything about Donovan McNabb. They could not do anything about him. And they've had better success over the last regular season versus the Eagles. It doesn't matter. The Eagles just keep winning. And look, Andrew Makuba from Texas, he played at Texas and Clemson. They're a fantastic player. And I really like the Ty Robinson pick from Nebraska. He's kind of that Eagles, just big, angry nose tackle guy that can come in and spell their other 2 big, angry nose tackle guys.
Oh, man. I love Ty Robinson. So many different reasons to get him. I found out after the fact, I didn't realize this. One of his nicknames is the Vanilla Gorilla. I don't know. Is there a better nickname for that? You tell me there's a Vanilla Gorilla out there. Absolutely. I don't need to see that player, but he was one of those that I was interested, are the Eagles going to get? And I thought at 96 would make some sense. And then that's also one of those, you trade back. Is Ty Robinson still going to be available? And even Howie Roseman in his press conference after day 3 said, yeah, he was at our board. We were hoping to get him at 96, but the deal was too good to trade back and get some other draft capital. So then we're just hoping to get him the next day, day 3, to start it off. And sure as the world, he just falls right there. You're able to take him. But yeah, I made a recent video just talking about, I feel like he's one of the most underrated picks, certainly for the Eagles, but of the draft, because I know he's 24, that the age factor of slipping down a little bit further. But I mean, that dude, I know anybody who's watched Ty Robinson, my gosh, the strength, the size, the versatility, plays anywhere from wide 9 to a nose tackle. You move him all over the place. And for me personally, I'm like, look, he's getting some of those double teams. He's getting some more notice or some attention in college football. And I know it's harder to obviously, step up, play at the NFL level, but he hasn't gotten to play next to Jalen Carter. So that makes life a whole lot easier. You play next to Jalen Carter and he's not getting that focus. So yeah, I'm incredibly hyped to see Ty Robinson and a lot of those other guys. But you got the connections all over the place. Cam Jurgens, the center for the Eagles, played at Nebraska, one of the best friends with Ty Robinson. They had daily battles, put in a good word for him. So it'll be fun. There's lots of ties and connections, but big fan of Ty Robinson.
Yeah. Look, nobody's won the NFC East 2 years in a row for 2 decades now. It's gone on. And look, the Commanders are coming. I mean, that's very evident, but, and I think you can say the Giants are not in a great spot right now as far as that. I kind of like what they're doing. I hate that they got Cam Scatteraboo. I hate it. I hate it, but they're in a full rebuild right now. The Giants are. The Cowboys don't have the decency to be bad enough to do a full rebuild. So they're going to be kind of the X factor of that division. But how do you see the race of what's going on in Washington right now, in Philly trying to defend that title and make it 2 years in a row for the first time, like I said, in 22 years or something like that?
Yeah. It's crazy that it's taken that. It seems like every year, somebody wins the NFC East, like, okay, well, this will be the year, right? Like, you're just going to go ahead. Like, they probably have the opportunity, but history says that it won't be the Eagles. I would tell you that it will be this year, but again, that's my bias. The Commanders are legit. I mean, everybody knows that. You don't go NFC Championship game, even though they got slaughtered in that one. But you don't make it to the NFC Championship game unless you're legit. Jade Daniels is for real. I think everybody's seen that. For anyone, I don't think there were a whole lot of doubters, but there were a few people going like, Jade Daniels is not going to be able to hold up. He won't be able to take that next step. Or the Cliff Kingsbury knocks of, they're good early in the season, but wait, people adjust. Well, they made it all the way to the NFC Championship game. So they're retooling, they're reloading, they're getting some other firepower there. The one thing on the Commanders side is, can they stop the run? They had issues with it all season long. Obviously, that was where Philly was able to severely take advantage of in the NFC Championship game. But if they can get that part, even just like average run defense, all the other areas. I mean, they draft Trey Amos from Ole Miss. You get another corner. Mike Samuel's good. Marshawn Lattimore, like, kind of questionable. He had some moments, but I don't know if he's necessarily up to that level. But you like their defense in terms of pass defense. Not too bad. Offensively, I mean, again, Jaden Daniels with anybody, but you've added some tools there for him. Debo, I'm interested to see. I think that he'll have a little bit of a resurgence. Maybe not like a 2018 type of year, but better than he has been. So they're certainly on the radar. I would say keep an eye out for them. I do think that it's going to come down to like one of the last games of the season, depending on how the schedule lies. But if it's the Eagles and Commanders last game of the season, I would think that dictates who wins the NFC East. But no one's running away with it. Let's just say that this year will not be a run away with it.
No, it's going to be very, very different. This year in the NFC East, and where that like. Washington snuck up on everybody last year. That's not going to happen. How do you see, just from my perspective, how do you see the Cowboys and what they have done, changing the coaching staff? Still don't have a number one running back, still don't have a number two wide receiver, but getting younger. Like they certainly are getting younger across the board.
They're making some good moves, but kind of like you said, I feel like they need to go just the all-in route of the kind of complete rebuild, if you will. It not even like, hey, let's take years and years to, but it's like they're signing just enough to be kind of relevant, but not the full-blown measure. It needs to be take one route or the other, right? Like when Jerry Jones said, what was he last year? I think we're going the all in, and it just blew up, and everybody take the viral quote.
Now it's substantive trades.
Yes, exactly. So it's you to go back and forth with that, but I will say this, Jaden Blue, I liked the draft pick there. I was hopeful that the Eagles could somehow, figure out a way to get him. It's a luxury pick, but if you have that in tandem with Saquon Barkley, I thought that would be fun with this offensive line. For Dallas, like, as you said, that's not really necessarily your bell cow running back. He's a great offensive weapon. I'm just curious, like, where did they use him? How is it off the slot? Are you going to try to give him 15 to 20 touches a game? I just don't know if he's that guy. Overall, I don't hate the selections, but yeah, it's I think it's kind of the same old for most years. I'm like, yeah, I'm not terrified that they could do something. They could make some moves. It's just not, I think, enough to get them over the hump, even if they were to, somehow make the playoffs.
Yeah. I say all the time, they don't have the decency to stink enough. Like you kind of have to like
brand.
Yeah. You have to sometimes go, okay, we have to clear some stuff out. We're not going to not try to win, but we can't try to win with this dead weight. Like you got to clear off the dead weight and see what happens, see what's left. The Texans just did it. The Eagles have done it a couple times where it's like, all right, well, you know what? It's time to like Viking funeral this thing and like shoot the arrows out of the lake and watch it burn. And then they just can't do it. Like, and that's what I think I'm so impressed with the Eagles about, is that they can just admit like, all right, look, Carson Wentz, like he was kind of a firework, like he shot up and then he burned out real fast. So, they could see it coming, and that's why they drafted Jalen Hurts. Like they knew it in their head, like this could go one of two ways. Like, it's going to go one of two ways. Let's hedge our bets. And they're prepared for every possibility. And look, they have said stuff that doesn't work out, but they're just not afraid. Like they are operating with no fear right now. And I think that's like the Chiefs, like they and the Chiefs just operate with no fear. And that is what makes them maybe the two franchises that everybody's afraid of more than anyone else, because they know that like whatever happens, they're going to be like, well, that sucks, but all right, well, here's next,
Yeah, it's just on to the next one. I would say there's a fascinating stat or whatever historical element that you can go back and look at. And I saw it a couple of months ago. Just every time we go with a draft, you're recapping or saying, okay, let's see what past history have the Eagles done, Howie Roseman, and all that. I think it's not just the draft, right? There's a whole lot of elements to team building, general manager, what makes Howie Roseman so great. But it doesn't hurt to hit on a ton of draft picks. Like that's a very quick, easy, or much quicker, easier way to build the team up, because you got cheap contracts, you can make some other things happen with some other players that you need to sign, things like that. And Howie Roseman, you go back and look, for the last 4 drafts, we'll see about this one, obviously, but the 4 previously, his first 3 picks in each draft, you could claim a hit. Like, you could say that was a hit on a player who played at meaningful games. You could say maybe you could argue one player potentially if you want to, whether that's a Tyler Steen or a Sidney Brown, but there's injuries factor in that one as well. But ultimately, I mean, if worst case scenario, you're saying out of 4 years, 3 draft picks, that's 12 guys, 11 of those turned into significant contributing factors. I mean, get out of here. Like, teams hope and pray to have that for 1 draft, let alone you go and make it for 4 successful seasons. So yeah, they're able to re-up deals. They're able to move things around. They're able to sign all these guys. I mean, they lock up A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, Jalen Hurts, Saquon Barkley. They re-up Saquon Barkley's contract. You practically sign the entire offensive line. But the only reason they can do that is because they have one of the cheapest defenses in the NFL. And it's the fact they just keep hitting on these draft picks. So it's not necessarily rocket science. That's why I say they're very good at it, but there is an element. Sometimes it's good, sometimes it's being good. Sometimes it's better to be lucky. There's certainly an element of that, I think, in there.
Josh Davis, Philly special with us, and he's built quite the cottage industry. So we got to wrap it up because I got a whole podcast to do here in like 11 minutes. But Josh, I love the story. Like, you were working and doing this podcast, and your other job had nothing to do with media, even though that's what you were trained in by me. So among others, but yes. By me, I was, so you went and you took a job. I know you got the wife and family and all that stuff. How fast did this take off?
I'm telling you, it is an unbelievable blessing and crazy of how fast it took off. The channel's been up for a little over 2 years, and we're just past 126,000 subscribers. So, it helps for the Eagles to be relevant. The Super Bowl run is great. That is a big contributing factor. But yes, you should certainly take some credit for people that may not be aware or know. I mean, you handpicked, selected me, allowed me to be the intern there, and all the learnings and everything else. You educated me. So absolutely, you should take credit. I don't know if Smokey's going to hear this, but maybe not as much for Smokey. No, I joke nonetheless.
He will. He will. I'm sure he will. Yeah, absolutely. It's going to be on the show he's on.
Okay, so. Perfect. That's great. Okay, good. But no, he knows I love him as well. But I never could envision this, quite honestly. But it's one of those things that, people say, do what you love and you'll never work a day in your life. It's a whole lot of time and effort and energy, but it started out as a passion project. I was like, yeah, we'll just, do it on the side. We'll see what happens. And like I say, just living the dream, absolutely blessed, but I very much appreciate it. It is awesome.
Yeah. Well, Josh, always love talking to you. Steven Simcox just walked in the door. I know you guys overlapped, right? Yeah.
Yep, so, there you go.
Yeah.
What's up?
So yeah, Steven just walked in the door here, and always great to talk to you, buddy. We'll do this again. Absolutely. Talk to you soon. Josh Davis, the Philly special, the top 5's up next.
Overwhelmed by your inbox? Clean Email is here to help. Organize, clean, and manage your emails with powerful automation tools. Say goodbye to spam and clutter and enjoy a stress-free inbox. Try Clean Email today at cleanemail.com. That's CLEAN email.com. Founded in 1910, Samsonite is the world leader in durable, high-quality luggage and travel accessories. Made to the highest standards, our products won't let you down. We give you the confidence to get out there and explore. Inspired by the past, devoted to the present, and built to inspire a multi-generational future, Samsonite is here to elevate your journey. Travel with Samsonite and pack confidence every step of the way. Shop now at shop.samsonite.com. Samsonite.
This is Paul Catalina's Top 5, brought to you by Ticket Club. Forget the fees, just big savings. Click the link in the description to find out more.
Welcome in. It's Friday. It's the Top 5. It is the Top 5 steals of the draft on defense. Let's go. Number 5, Bengals linebacker Barrett Carter in the 4th. This guy's speed, sideline to sideline, one of Dabo Swinney's favorite Clemson Tigers in his entire tenure. This guy is a ball carrier hunter. If you've got the ball, he's going to go find you. He's good in coverage. He can make plays on the ball. A little bit undersized, but one of those guys like Sam Mills or Datwin or Zach Thomas type. I love Barrett Carter, even though he wears disgusting orange and purple, but fantastic player. And the Bengals got him in the 4th round. Number 4, the Packers, Colin Oliver in the 5th. This is a guy who was injured most of last year, really hurt the Oklahoma State defense. In 2023, though, he was all over the place. Makes great tackles, always around the ball, can get after the passer. And to get a guy like this in the 5th round because his measurables might be a little bit lower, this guy is a ball player right now, and he will be a welcome addition. He'll also help them on special teams early on. Number 3, the Steelers, Jack Sawyer in the 4th. If there was a Steelers player ever, if I had to pick one guy from the national champion team this year for the Buckeyes, that is Pittsburgh Steeler through and through, it's Jack Sawyer. Captain Jack, as they call him, he was the leader of that defense. He makes big plays. He's got a motor that doesn't stop. I mean, look at those tattoos. That is Pittsburgh Steeler tattoos right there. The Terrible Towels are going to love him in Pittsburgh. An absolute steal in the 4th. He will produce for Pittsburgh. There is not many a better fit of player and team than Jack Sawyer and the Steelers. Number 2, the Chiefs took cornerback Noel Williams of Cal in the 3rd round. This guy led the nation in interceptions this past year. And yes, he was at Cal, so he kind of went under the radar. But as a 3rd cornerback, a guy who can step in, I will compare him to Deron Bland from the Cowboys, who was a lower round draft pick, who stepped in early on and made a difference as a rookie. Noel Williams is that. He goes and gets the ball. Really, really like Noel Williams going to the Chiefs. He's a Spags special with Steve Spagnuolo there in Kansas City. They'll love him. And number 1, Donovan Ezuraku in the 2nd for the Cowboys. This is a 1st-round graded player that fell to them at 44. To get this guy with the 44th pick and put him on the other side of Micah Parsons is stealing money for the Cowboys. This is one of those things. The Cowboys were better lucky than good. This was so lucky that he fell to them. It is a great pairing for that defense. It is a great pairing for Micah Parsons, not to mention that they've got the young Marshawn Nealand, who they took last year, and Sam Williams the year before. They should have a dynamic pass rush this year because they brought back Dante Fowler. You've got 5 guys who can get after the quarterback regularly. They have no excuse not to lead the NFC East in sacks this year. They've got players there. I'm saying it right now. Cowboys should lead the NFC East in sacks. Whether that means that they're good or not, who the hell knows? But Donovan Ezuraku, maybe the biggest steal of the entire draft. I know he was a 2nd rounder, but to get him at 44 when you could have probably got him at 20, unbelievable. Unbelievable. Most years, this guy goes in the top 20. Absolutely a steal for the Cowboys. I can't believe I'm saying the Cowboys got a draft steal. That's amazing. You know what else is amazing? The weekend. Enjoy it.